Okay, we are here outside of Sweet Indulgent. God, it's been a long week. With Ashleigh and a comedian, not a comedian, correct? I did get that pronunciation correct.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Now, how'd you get started in comedy?
I make some like fun videos on YouTube.
Okay.
And then I also like karaoke. Karaoke is like a big thing for me.
Okay.
And one day Marion shows up to this guy that's running the comedy show, and he's like, "You're funny. I saw you doing that song at karaoke. Do you want to do comedy?" And I was like, "No, I've never done comedy." I called him back a couple weeks later, and I said, "Yes." So yeah, that's when I got started. So I just started like writing jokes down while I was at work, and then I've only done like 2 or 3 shows, so it hasn't been like I'm not like a seasoned comedian.
It's like let me guess though, it's like life. It's learning everything in life. It's a learning experience.
Oh yeah.
So now, how hard is it? Now for musicians, I know it's hard, but how hard is it to get up in front of a crowd, especially when you may not know anybody, and try to get them laughing? Because I mean, a lot of times, especially they've had a bad week or something, that has to be very difficult to do at times.
Yeah, I think like sometimes I just feel like not getting on stage, but if I made a commitment, like I made a commitment, my face is on the poster already, I gotta go up there. But sometimes I think it's better if there are people that I don't know. Okay. Because I essentially have to not worry about ever seeing them again. Like if I make them laugh, that's great. If I don't make them laugh and they want to beat me up later, that's too bad. I'll never see them.
They'll do it on the social media, right?
Yeah, and I put stuff on YouTube all the time, and people can be real dicks about everything, but so I'm used to that. But
you basically take you pick out what's the constructive criticism versus the slamming you.
Yeah. So like people have told me that like my comedy is like too like highbrow or something, and I'm like, no, you just have to have a couple more drinks. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. So you have different now. Do you stick with like one specific style, or do you like are you kind of all over the map with your jokes, or do you judge it by the crowd?
I try to judge it by the crowd, but I have kind of a set, number. I've been told that like when I first started, I was really nervous, and Marion said just go up there and tell funny stories. That's all comedy is you're telling stories. You're just exaggerating. That's
all a lot of social media is anymore, right? Too, yeah.
Right? So, you get up there and so I tell stories, like, from things that happen to me. But I just exaggerate, and, I'm not, it's my life. Mm-hmm. So I don't feel like I'm getting up there and I'm lying to people. I don't feel like
You're not making it up.
I'm just telling stories about my life, and they happen to be hilarious.
Yeah. So that's cool. You draw from your own life experience, though.
Yeah.
Even some of the worst situations in life, you can be turned. I mean, like people say, look, when they die, hey, don't throw a funeral for me, throw a party.
Right.
I want people laughing and joking around about my life versus just versus standing around mourning and telling all these stories about how much they love me when realistically they didn't.
Oh yeah. Well, my dad, that's one of my dad's big things. He's like, when I die and there's a funeral, don't have people up there telling how great I am. Bring up the people that I hate. Mm-hmm. Bring up the people that hate me, and get them up there and be like, you know what? He was kind of an asshole.
I guarantee you have people in that crowd, that people at that funeral laughing. Guaranteed, just because they're not expecting it.
Yeah.
So, now, is your style more stand-up and improv, or is it pretty much, do you kind of like have a set jokes when you go in?
I have some set jokes.
Okay, so you're a combination, kind of?
Yeah. Depending on which ones I tell, I'm basically kind of up in the air. Like, kind of right now, like I've got like my little notepad and I'm like scribbling down like on pieces of paper what I'm gonna say, but like I already have the jokes. I just have to figure out what order I'm gonna put them in based on which crowd I go with. Okay, so to a point, it's kind of like almost like a band with their set list almost to a minor extent. Yeah, you just have to arrange the set list based on what what the crowd is, what your venue is. Like I was up in
What they
Stroudsburg.
respond to, like your first couple jokes, am I right?
Yeah, I was up in Stroudsburg with Marion like last month, a couple months ago, and it almost put me off of comedy entirely because I was up there and I told like a Little House on the Prairie joke, and nobody in the room had heard of Little House on the Prairie, and
In Strasbourg?
I just like stumbled through that one, and then I told one about how I had called the cops on some guy, and then I remembered that a guy that was sitting right there had said how like somebody called the cops on him and he hates the cops and fuck the police, and I was like,
Ouch.
oh, this is gonna go so well, and it was awful. And when I was done, I was like, you know what? I'm open to hecklers. Just go at it. And this one lady's like, talk about being a lesbian. And I was like, if I knew anything about being a lesbian, I would definitely have told jokes about that. But that's not who I am. They're like, oh, are you sure you're not gay? Because you seem gay. I'm like, this is absolutely the worst stand-up I've ever done.
But you're looking back on it and you're cracking up about it. So
Looking
it's,
back
you know.
on it, yeah. But like while I was standing up there, I was like, oh, God, why am I here? Why am I here?
Well, if that's the toughest crowd, one of the toughest crowds you're ever going to face, though, it's like, okay, the next one, you probably learned a lot from it, though.
Oh yeah. Like, you definitely have to go by your audience. That was only the second time I'd ever been on stage for comedy. So, like, you gotta learn from your audience, and you can't just, like, sit in the back and, scribble jokes down that you think are funny. Like, you gotta practice. And
Okay.
that's the hardest part. I got a couple of roommates that do not think I am funny. So I'll practice on them. Because I'll tell my joke and I'll stop. They're like, are we supposed to laugh right now?
Now, two final questions. We're going to wrap this up. I just told we're kind of on a tight time frame right now. Do you think that maybe going to see other comedians and watching the crowd, not watching the comedian, but watching the crowd at, with other comedy shows, do you think that, for people, that'd be a help or a hindrance or both? Like you said, paying attention to the crowd, how they react to different styles, not the jokes, but the style versus, paying attention to the comedian.
Yeah, I definitely found that's a big thing, is paying attention to the crowd while another comedian is up there. The first time I was up doing stand-up, Marion had somebody come in from New York, and I opened for her, and I planned all these jokes out, and I'd written them down, and I had these tiny pieces of paper everywhere, and I'd worked really hard on them, and people were kind of polite laughing, and then this woman gets up there, and she's like, where are my Puerto Ricans at? And the crowd went nuts, and I was like, that's all you have to do? That's all you have to do?
Oh man. I just drove myself to the point of going into a mental institution for this, and that's so. One final question. Like I said, I know comedy has to be tough. Okay, so for all the people in there that are new to it, that want to get into it, that think they're funny, advice to them.
Right?
I know I'm putting you on the spot with this,
No.
but since you're new to it, this is actually a lot better than as good as somebody who's been doing it for years.
Yeah. I'd say for anyone who's new to it, don't half-ass it. Like, pick some time, write down what you think is funny, look at comedians that you think are funny, and then make it your own. Don't try to make it somebody else's.
Don't be like a cover of another comedian, essentially.
Yeah, and it's very easy to do that. Like, if I go on TV and I watch, Amy Schumer or Aziz Ansari, and, I pick up on those things very quickly. So, I'm like, oh, yeah, I can do that. But that's not who I am.
Right.
So, to new comedians, I'd say, write your own stuff down. Learn from other comedians, find out what makes people in that audience laugh, but use your own stories.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your time. I greatly appreciate it. What did you think of the interview and my style of doing it?
You know what? I like it a lot.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time, and I really, as you can tell, I had a great time.